Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So everyone's freaking out about the episode 8 title, The Last Jedi, wondering if they're going to kill off Luke Skywalker. There are a couple big reasons why I think that they will, and a couple reasons why I think that they won't. So I'll try to address both sides of that argument. And they also teased a little bit about the future of the Skywalker family relative to the saga films. So I'll explain that at the end of the video. There is a new round of the Star Wars giveaway. It's for IMAX gift certificates. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. So the Star Wars people are always intentionally vague about the new films just to try and hold back as many details as possible. But based on the trajectory of the new films and the future of Star Wars movies in general after this saga, you can make a few guesses on what's going to be happening with the Skywalker family, especially in this new trilogy. But there are a couple big reasons why they would kill off Luke Skywalker in this next film, and then a couple why they would not. So I'll try to address things on both sides. So number one, reasons why they would, is the title The Last Jedi hints at him. In a couple of the international posters, the language was made singular, male, so even if Rey were in training to be a Jedi, it would have been plural in all the posters all around the world. But the problem is that they were trying to be ambiguous with the title. Like, they want people to wonder, oh, is Jedi plural or is it singular? That's the whole idea. But it's really hard to do that in all the languages around the world. And even if you go by the episode 7 title crawl, which names Luke the last of the Jedi, he was the last of the Jedi before the Force awakened in Rey. So even though the evidence does point to Luke being the last of the Jedi, there's still a number of arguments that you could make that it's a plural meaning. But number two, Luke Skywalker is the de facto Obi-Wan Kenobi of this new trilogy. His relationship with Rey is almost the exact same relationship he had with Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy. Wizened master teaching new recruit about the ways of the Force. Luke and Rey are very similar characters, but they're not the exact same. He required like a little more prodding from Obi-Wan when they were on Tatooine. Come with me to Alderaan, Luke. Learn the ways of the Force. No, I can't do that. I've got the harvest. I've got all these responsibilities. After pushing Luke over the precipice, teaching him a little bit about the Force, he became a Force ghost himself. And even though they've recontextualized what it means to be a Force ghost, what the rules of being a Force ghost is, he still went away, leaving Luke Skywalker on his own, and there was a lot of adventures that Luke went on between Episode 4 and Empire Strikes Back that they deal with in the Marvel comics that they've started publishing again. So if you want to read about those, they pick up like right after Episode 4. Luke has all kinds of run-ins with Vader before he meets him in battle during Empire Strikes Back, completely recontextualizing that final moment where he tells him he's his father. So there's just a very big period where Luke knew a little bit about the Force, but hadn't gotten any more training. The reason the movies were able to get away with that was because Yoda still existed, an older, wiser master that Luke could go continue his training with. And they've implied that that does not exist in the new Star Wars films. Like the way the opening title crawls, if you take it at its face value, Luke is the last of the Jedi. Snoke is like the last remaining person on the dark side of the Force, even though he's not Sith. So even though there's probably holocrons, there's artifacts that you could probably dig up, they're the only two masters that you could go seek out, ask questions, and get good answers from. You could point to Maz Kanata and say that she's the Yoda-like figure of Episode 7. I think that was part of the intention, because she seems like she understands a little bit about the Force, but they don't say that she's Force-sensitive or that she has any real deep knowledge of the Force. Just in the way that Donnie Yen's character believes in the Force and seemingly uses it without totally understanding what's happening. Number 3, the most damning evidence that Luke might die during Episode 8 is that he himself has been searching for the true purpose of the Force, not the truth that the Jedi taught. The Jedi Order, the Sith, teaching things that were not the original intentions of the Force. The Force has a will of its own. People misinterpret things all the time. That seems like what the writers and producers were telling us with Episode 7. Luke and Snoke are both trying to learn the truth of the Force, obtain lost knowledge, and become something different than the Force factions before. Obviously, they didn't explain a lot of that in Episode 7 in really clear terms, but you learn a little bit more about that in the expanded material, something about Snoke's past, but they also try to be very ambiguous with those kinds of details just to allow the other films to deal with that first. And then you'll get like all the technical books, like Pablo Hidalgo publishes a lot of technical books. He also gets a lot of weird complaints from people, but he only writes those after they decide what the story of the movies are going to be. So on the other side of that, there are a couple big reasons why they would not kill Luke off right away. One, they made you wait through the entire film just to meet him. There was very little Force training or even an explanation for what was going on. He didn't even speak, just very concerned looks at the sight of Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. So even if you haven't been listening to the rumors from behind the scenes, everything is pointing towards him having a much bigger, more active, badass role than Obi-Wan had in the original trilogy. Think about that cantina fight, how brutally he cut down Ponda Baba and Cornelius. It was so much fun to see them in Rogue One, knowing what would be happening to them in short order. But I think we'll all be getting a Luke version of what Obi-Wan did during the course of Episode 4, but just way, way cooler. So there will be a lot of things that are similar to Luke's original training in Episode 4, just like the early steps into Force training, but I'll explain in a second why I think that Episode 8 will not be a complete retread of the original trilogy the way that people feel like Episode 7 was. Number 2, next big reason, there is no Yoda to continue Rey's training if Luke dies. Presumably, she's becoming this new type of Force user that isn't necessarily a Jedi, but isn't a Sith, is something more complete. You could choose to think of her as a gray Jedi. That's a whole other video that I should probably do. But the reason that Luke was able to finish his training, become a Jedi, was because of Yoda, an older, wiser master. Whether or not Obi-Wan wasn't able to complete his training, this goes back to the rules of being a Force ghost, because if Obi-Wan was a Force ghost, why didn't he just complete Luke's training himself? Well, one, because Yoda was a wiser, more powerful master, so of course you would seek out the smartest person available. But two, they also implied that there are a lot of limitations to being a Force ghost. You can't just hang around all the time, constantly, in the way you would need to if you were training someone to become a Jedi. So if Luke became a Force ghost during Episode 8, he could still talk to Rey, but he wouldn't be able to train her in the same way were he physically there all the time. I know a lot of people will point to the idea that what if Rey were to seek out Snoke eventually to finish some of her training? There's a lot of evil Rey theories. I even did a video about her being pulled to the dark side of the Force. But pending any hidden masters that are hiding out in the galaxy somewhere, there's just nobody else to fulfill that role in the way that Luke Skywalker needs to. So he's just absolutely necessary until she finishes her training. So number 3, the last reason, and probably the simplest reason for not killing him off right away, is that it's just a complete retread of Episode 4. Luke shows up, gives her some training, boom, dies off, goes away, never to be seen again until we learn about Force Ghosts. The problem with the new films is that you already have all this information about what's possible, the way the Force works. So part of the really exciting stuff that I think we're going to see is in recontextualizing the Force and what is actually possible. So you will see a lot of new things. So even though you know that if Luke dies, he could become a Force ghost, I think we'll get some new information and see some new Force abilities that will change the way you feel about that. Everything everyone has said about Episode 8 so far is that it is going to be the most different new saga film that you could imagine. The way it's treating character work, not just the Force users like Rey and Kylo Ren, but the supporting cast like Finn, Poe, General Hux, even Captain Phasma. They said, Captain Phasma, one of the standout characters of Episode 7. Please tell us there's more Captain Phasma. In J.J. Abrams, the producers are like, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot more Captain Phasma in Episode 8. But I do expect the films to follow like standard Joseph Campbell hero's journey progression, but not in the cut and paste way that previous Star Wars movies have done, mirroring the old films. So there will be a lot of familiar things, but in reality, it'll actually be quite different the way the plot works out, whatever the story ends up being. And then there's this implied treasure hunt aspect to the movie that they didn't really address after Episode 7 came out, but that they teased with Rey's flashback visions, where Kylo Ren is trying to track down some secret artifact with the Knights of Ren here. So that's something that will play out over the course of Episode 8. You have to remember that the Force visions that Rey got were of the past and of things that might be happening in the future too. The really good metaphor to make is that the Force is kind of like the Speed Force on the Flash TV show, in that it's sort of a nexus of space-time. So you could be seeing things from the past, from the future, things from alternate realities, depending on the choices that you make. The future is always changing. But part of the fun is in trying to interpret that intent. Like, what did these actually mean? So I do not think that they're going to kill Luke Skywalker off right away. But I do think that eventually, because of the direction that the Star Wars movies are heading after the new saga films, that he will eventually die, whether or not it's in Episode 9 or sometime after that. But they are talking about doing new saga films, new films with the new characters, even if they're not going to be doing saga films anymore, that will go well past the new trilogy. So like Rey would come back for some other spin-off Star Wars movie way down the road. So the idea is that the Skywalker family will no longer be the central focus of Star Wars films in the way that it has in the past. There'll always be Star Wars films, there'll always be Skywalkers appearing in Star Wars films, but the saga films have always been about their family. In Episode 8, Episode 9 are the last films that are supposed to be doing that. So I'll talk more about Rey Force training, what the future of this new type of Jedi is in the Star Wars universe later this week. But please leave all your requests for Star Wars videos in the comments below. What I'll probably do is I'll be doing a couple Star Wars videos a week for the next couple weeks, but we can make like Fridays a Star Wars day, like a day where I always do a Star Wars video, no matter what's going on. Congratulations to the latest giveaway winner, Tyrone Beelan. You win 2 IMAX gift certificates. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. There was a new round that started in this video. I'll just announce the winner the next time I post a Star Wars video. So that'll be all about Rey's training. That'll either post on Thursday or Friday. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here for all the Episode 8 title Easter eggs, and you can click here to listen to Kylo Ren talk about his character in Episode 8. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.